Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ron Marks. I'm the delete that.
So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adriana Grijalva. For those that don't know me, I am the AHRA Student Body President here at the University of Arizona. Real quick, I'm just going to share who's with us and then go over some guidelines and rules for this town hall, and then give some opening remarks before passing it on to Provost Marks to give some remarks, and then we'll hear from some students, and after that we'll go through some questions and stuff. So we are super happy that you guys are all able to join us, and thank you for all being here and all the students that are here sharing your concerns, and everybody coming together in the last days has honestly been inspiring to us that you students do have a voice here on campus, and we are hearing that, we're seeing that. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here. So just some things, we do want to respect the privacy of the people that are in here too and sharing their concerns. It does take a lot to stand up here and share that, and some are sharing personal stories, so we want to keep that in mind and make sure that's a space that is safe. So we want to respect for space and access, so please remain in your seat throughout their meeting to ensure that space remains accessible to all. So do not block walkways, doors, or exits, and ensure that there is a clear access for others to leave if necessary. Second, we want to respect for speech and expression. So the First Amendment protects the right to free speech, and we all are here to allow all voices to be heard. So this includes any comments of students, administration, faculty, and others addressing. Lastly, behavior. If there's any shouting, chanting, or loud talking, inappropriate clapping, heckling, or interruptions, standing in a way that blocks the view of others or hinders the meeting's flow, any behavior that distracts, we will immediately close the town hall. So just please keep that in mind that we are here to hear your students, hear the students' voices in this, so let's just keep that in mind. As your student government, our job is to hear the voices of students and advocate on behalf of you guys. So this is a challenging time when we hear concerns, and we want to make sure that everybody has a voice. And we definitely have seen that hope from all of you guys that we could make a change. Seeing all you students come to me on Friday and how fast you were able to get this going, and the administration is here to listen to that, and that's something that I think in the past we've taken the mistake of, is just not listening to students, and that's something we really want to change, is that your voice does matter. So with that, I'm going to open up with some remarks and then pass it over to Provost Marks to give some remarks. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adriana Grijalva. As I said, I'm your student body president here at the University of Arizona, and I want to start off by offering a sincere thank you to all of you who are here today, sharing your stories and concerns. Seeing all of you here today is incredibly powerful. Your voices resonate deeply, and I could truly feel the strong sense of community that each of you bring. In these last days, seeing each of you come together has really shown how much we care for each other. As your student body president, my role is to advocate for you, the students, and it truly hurts me to see that this recent decision to move enrollment management to the 4th floor of the student union has resulted in the displacement of student groups like Fraternity Sorority Programs, CIELO, and Survivors Advocacy, while also now discussing the moving of APASA's front desk and areas that all of these resources use. These are not just offices. These spaces have become like second homes to many of you, places where you find support, connection, and a sense of belonging here at the U of A. To now face uncertainty about where these spaces will go or what the future holds is not only frustrating, it just shows the betrayal of trust that we hold in our administration to advocate for the student needs. Big decisions like this should involve students in the conversation. Yet it feels that sometimes these decisions are mostly not considering how much these spaces really mean to students. The students feel that this is a pattern, that it keeps happening, and that it's something that we keep missing, is to listen to you, the voice of the students, because without you guys, we would not be nothing. I want you all to know that we are here, your student government, we are here with you, your voice matters, and we will keep fighting for resources and to support you the best that deserves you students to thrive here on campus. So with that, thank you so much for being here. and for sharing the space with us and to be open with us. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Provost Marks to give some remarks.
Thank you. Thank you, Adriana, and thank you to ASUA for taking leadership to organize this event. It's very important to have these kinds of dialogues, and I'm glad to see you all here this afternoon. Let me start by saying that you're a very impressive group, and the way you organized so quickly and got your voice out so quickly that we were able to hear was very impressive. And I want to take, as a member of the faculty, I want to take some responsibility among all of our faculty members for providing such a great education to you, that you have the smarts and the courage to do this kind of work and to stand up to authority and power. So thank you for that, and thank you for coming. That's my opening remark. Next, I just want to say that I personally want to apologize for not doing this more carefully. And I want to talk about how we might proceed down the road with a much more measured and considerate approach to how we need to solve some of our problems in administration. The enrollment management team has been in the first floor of Old Main. As many of you know, all of you who are students were admitted to the university through the enrollment management process. So they've been in the first floor of the Old Main for a number of years. With President Garamella's arrival on campus, he wanted to make sure that his senior leadership team, in particular the provost, who leads the academic mission of the university, is close at hand so that we can have kind of casual conversations that you need to have when you're doing this kind of work. So I moved from the administration building into Old Main. That means that I'm separated from all the people who I work with. So we have a bit of a challenge of trying to get all that to work tightly together. At the same time, we will be changing our enrollment management strategies over the next couple of years, and we need to do an analysis of the functions of enrollment management and make sure that they're in space that works well for their functions. That was the intent behind the proposed move that that generated such a reaction from you. It turns out that the space on the fourth floor that's occupied by the groups that Adriana said is about the size that we would need for the enrollment management team. We did not think through functionally what it would mean for us to move EM into that space and how it would disrupt the work of not only the people occupying that space, but the culture centers that surround that space. John Arnold, to my left, the CFO and COO, and I talked with President Garamella this afternoon about this situation, and we have come to the conclusion that we need to put a pause on this whole process. We need to go back to the drawing table, look very carefully at the needs, the functional needs of the enrollment management team, find the right kind of space on campus for them, and then work with any groups that might be disrupted, whether it be in the student union or any other place, to make sure that their functions and their work can be carried out in a new location. So as of right now, you can be assured that we're going to stop this process right now and think about how to do this in a better way, collaborating with you and any other groups that might get involved in this, in these moves down the road. Exactly when that will happen, I'm not so sure. We have new leadership in enrollment management that will be coming in sometime in the spring, so that person needs to be involved. That's not been determined yet, but that will be down the road. So I want to give you my assurance that as a faculty member and as a academic leader at the university, that we have heard you and that we will pause this process now. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and get started with all of our student speakers.
Good afternoon, University Administration. My name is Petla. I am the current VP of Academic Achievements for the United Sorority and Fraternity Council. I am am here as a representative of the 3 councils, including the Panhellenic Council and the Interfraternal Council, which are comprised of over 50 organizations. I am here to express our deep concerns regarding the decision to relocate enrollment management into the Fraternity and Sorority Program offices. This decision directly affects our councils and comprise several DEI initiatives. The decision also negatively reflects the university's 6 core values, which are integrity, compassion, exploration, adaptation, inclusion, and determination. We plead with you to keep these 6 values in mind when making decisions. USFC is home to 18 multicultural and identity-based organizations. These organizations rely heavily on the FSP office space for chapter advancements, community growth, and day-to-day operations. Most of our organizations lack chapter houses or facilities, making these shared spaces essential for daily operations. Our council hosts crucial service projects supporting vulnerable communities and organizations. This includes partnership with organizations such as the Sunnyside Foundation, Casa Alitas, which is a refugee and humanitarian aid center, and the Southern Arizona AIDS Foundation. Similarly, the Panhellenic Council uses the space for recruitment planning, board meetings, and chapter events. Without the space, fundraising would be extremely limited. Our councils promote women empowerment, leadership development, and academic excellence with supporting philanthropic efforts like the Circle of Sisterhood. The Interfraternal Council also benefits from this space, fostering brotherhood development programs, community service initiatives, leadership training, campus safety, and the well-being initiatives within the office space. We were informed of the decision at the beginning of the week that we had till Wednesday to move everything out, which has greatly disrupted our operations and caused panic among our members. Our council and its members have planned events over a year in advance and are now being displaced and canceled due to the last-minute removal notice. To address these concerns, we respectfully request space to continue operations, open dialogue with student leaders in advance before decisions are made, providing a community space equal or greater to our current space, collaborate to ensure permanent spaces for USFC, PHC, and IFC in the future. We stand united, advocating for equity and inclusion. The displacement of culturally and identity-based organizations can go unnoticed and stands directly against the university's 6 core values. We feel that sorority and fraternity life is in danger and not valued on our campus based off of the recent actions made by this administration. We urge you to represent the core values provided by the University of Arizona going forward. Thank you for your considerations of our concerns.
If I may, it would be really helpful to me if I could get the text of your presentations, because my auditory memory is not what it once was, so it'd be nice to be able to read the text. So any of you speakers, if you'd be willing to give that to me, I would greatly appreciate it.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Piemonte, and I am honored to stand before you all today as a student leader and proud representative of APASA. Today, I speak not only for myself, but on behalf of countless students whose voices must be heard. The decision to relocate enrollment management into the space where other resource centers resided was made without adequate consultation with students and raises concerns about safety, transparency, and impact on students who rely on these vital resources. The speed of implementation and construction, particularly during critical study periods, implies a troubling disconnect by the administration for student needs and priorities. APASA's history is a history of diaspora, established through student activism in 1993 in the Martin Luther King Jr. building, transferring to the basement of Old Main, then forced out to the first floor of the Nugent building by enrollment management, until we were displaced once again by the Dean of Students to the second floor of the Nugent building, where we resided as guests of the Native American Student Affairs from 2009 to 2022. Only through the efforts of the Pan-Asian Council's list of demands in the fall of 2021 did APASA finally gain its own space on the 4th floor of the Student Union. But make no mistake, this space is more than walls and doors. It is a sanctuary, It is a hub where students can come together to study, network, create, and grow. It is a place that nurtures belonging and fosters a family that helps students navigate the challenges of their college careers. This family, however, is not built by APASA alone. It is a result of the intentional coexistence of 7 other centers and departments on the 4th floor of the Student Union, many of which are here today. Together, the shared space is and continues to be a welcoming and accessible resource to all students, staff, and users of the space. As student leaders, we call on administration to stop the disruption to student spaces and demand a transparent and meaningful conversation regarding decisions directly impacting the communities. We ask for respect for the students and communities that make APASA and the 4th floor centers safe havens on campus. Let us move forward from today with unity and determination to protect spaces that make the university home for students. Let us protect the spaces that enable the university to uphold diversity, unity, and community that defines us. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lily Arthur, and I'm the director of Feminists Organized to Resist, Create, and Empower Force, and I'm here on behalf of our students today to discuss specifically how moving survivor advocacy impacts the work we do. I will be frank in the fact that the way administration handled this move and situation is appalling, especially as it contributes to a history of exclusion of students on behalf of the administration. We are here today, a week before Thanksgiving break, under an urgency as outlined by you, with no sense of transparency of why this move that originally was scheduled for early January, which pushed up to early December, and then last week, and then this Monday. You have used these tactics of making decisions that have such a huge impact on students fall just before breaks. We still remember when the Dean of Students and Provost offices planned to dissolve all of the cultural resource centers over summer break. This tactic is nothing new, and speaking as a senior, I am tired of continuously dealing with traumatic events brought on by the administration's obvious lack of care for the students and making our campus what it is, and also the students who pay their salary. I acknowledge the step in hearing us out at this forum, but I hope this new administration will prove to us that they are not only here to listen to students, but also consult us before making decisions that directly impact our experience at this university. On the topic of survivor advocacy being moved out of the student union, I cannot emphasize enough how this move will harm the students we work with. Every day we have students who come into our center in crisis, and right now we can walk them right down the hallway, and we know that they will have a safe place and the ability to process their trauma with a certified counselor. While it's true that you aren't solving the advocacy program, by displacing them, there is no guarantee that they will have access to an equitable space that addresses the specific needs of survivors. Furthermore, it sends the message that survivors don't deserve to have a central place on campus. It is clear that when this decision was made, administration was not thinking about the most marginalized students on campus. We reject that this move must happen. This is the student union, and therefore students should be prioritized. Moving forward, we expect transparency, accountability, and respect from administration, and we hope that you all have learned from this and that you will do better. Thank you.
My name is Elise Richmond. I'm a sophomore at the University of Arizona, and I'm a representative on behalf of the Survivor Advocacy Program. And as a survivor who has benefited from the Survivor Advocacy Program at the UA, hearing about this sudden move has instilled in me a mistrust when it comes to our administration and the systems at play in this school. All survivors were at one point victims of power who are now trying to heal and feel strength within themselves again. By the administration making this move without consent, they are turning survivors back into victims of power by taking away their resources and the safe space where they heal from their trauma. My question to you both is, How do you justify turning survivors back into victims of power?
You're looking for an answer now.
Yes, please.
Well, I think there's no justification for that.
So what is going to be done then with that answer?
Well, we're stopping this process now, and we'll figure out what we need to do with enrollment management and where we will move enrollment management, and we'll do a functional analysis of each one of those spaces, who's there. One of the things that's very interesting that I didn't know about, and I will admit my ignorance here, is how interleaved all of the services up on that 4th floor were. We didn't intend on affecting APASA, for example, but we did. And we did that in ignorance, frankly. We didn't know the relationship between the work that you're doing and the other culture centers. So this is out of ignorance. I apologize for that. But our point now is that we will stop this process and rethink how we will make the moves that we need to make.
I just wanted to add to that, as Ron said, we've learned so much through this process about how these groups interact on the 4th floor, and a lot of that we just didn't understand. So thank you so much for educating us on this, Ron.
Hi, my name is Claire. I'm speaking on behalf of Survivor Advocacy as somebody who's used the service. I think it's important to maybe give you a little bit of background as to maybe the cases that come through that office. I'm going to be pretty blunt with you. I was unfortunately stalked and harassed by the man who killed Dr. Thomas Meixner. So I've spent a lot of time in that office. Unfortunately, we're very close. We use their services a lot. They offer a very safe space to handle trauma. They offer, services going to court, services navigating the UAPD system, maybe finding a restraining order, things like that. And I just cannot emphasize enough how important that process was for not only me, but my department during that time. Quite honestly, they were the only resource that ever did anything for us. And it really, really appalls me that it just feels like there was no thought made behind that process. Thinking about what you guys were doing on that floor, taking and moving people around. And I want to emphasize the depth of the amount of people. You're not only affecting the people on that floor, but you're affecting communities such as my department and other communities that center touches. This is bigger than just the 4th floor. This is the whole campus, and this goes to, unfortunately, future victims. This goes to current victims. The depth is very great. And I just need to emphasize to you the importance of a safe space for people like this. Right now, they had a space that was secure, locked, has a doorbell in the corner, nobody would know you're there. Now they're in a dorm, which doesn't really quite make sense to me, that they had to figure out where to go by themselves, by the way. Nothing was offered on behalf of you guys. And I would like an explanation for that. But I just don't understand why victims of violence would be placed in a dorm where potentially there would be more safety issues. You have people going in and out of, they can't have windows open, they can't, what if their perpetrator lives in that dorm? That's something to consider here. And importantly too, the safety of the staff that work in that office. They need to have a safe space to process this type of work that they do. They work with really heavy cases. I've seen it firsthand, and they deserve to feel safe too. They deserve to feel safe. And going back to how things were handled with my department, unfortunately, there's been this pattern of lack of communication And it really breaks my heart, you know. I worked really hard to try and forgive you all. And just to see this again, to something that is very important to me, and the people that I have met through there I cannot thank them enough. I adore them, you know? And for you guys to just not even think about that and just do the exact same thing that you did previously, it kills me. It kills me, it keeps me up at night, okay? And I really hope that you're able to give these people an apology and take some accountability, which it sounds like you already sort of are, but there needs to be more of that, and you really need to work with these people. Thank you.
Hi, I'm also here with Survivor Advocacy. I'm a survivor myself, and I'm going to be sharing a little bit about my experience to tell you why it's so important that we have their services stay the way that they are. So, I'm going to be discussing sexual assault, rape, sex trafficking, domestic abuse, miscarriage, and victim blaming. So if that is a triggering topic, feel free to step out and take care of yourself. So, to whom it may concern, I was raped for the first time when I was 4 years old. I immediately went and told my grandmother, who I lived with at the time, and she told me that I needed to take care of it on my own and that she couldn't help. From ages 6 to 9, I was sexually assaulted by a family member, and I didn't tell anyone because of the way that I was treated in the past. I still see her at every family function. At 11 years old, I was forced into sex trafficking. I was drugged and raped by many men throughout the nights, and I would wake up and go to my 6th grade class, just like everybody else. At 13 years old, I found out that I was pregnant with my daughter, Genevieve, and she is the reason that I was able to escape the nightmare that is sex trafficking. She saved my life. I had a 2nd trimester miscarriage during an 8th grade field trip to the zoo. At 17 years old, a man broke into the house that I was house sitting and raped me at knife point. At 18 years old, I broke up with my romantic partner at the time, who had been sexually assaulting me and had tried to choke me. I was at my lowest and I didn't know what to do and nowhere felt safe. So I went to the Women and Gender Resource Center, and they immediately referred me to Survivor Advocacy, which was on the same floor. They walked me right over, and the Survivor Advocates were able to help me get an order of protection and connected me with more of their resources, like the survivor support groups, which are held in this room that has a window with a view of the mountains, and it's very peaceful and calm. At 19 years old, I was raped by another student here at the U of A, but because I had been attending these support groups, and I was now connected with the survivor advocates, I was able to go to the hospital and get proper treatment, and I got an order of protection with the help of the survivor advocates. And when he contested the order of protection, the advocates helped to prepare me for court, and they went with me to court last week. And they helped me feel prepared enough that I won the case. So I attribute much of my current success to the survivor advocates. Their office is the only place that I feel safe on campus. If they were to have their resources cut and be forced out of their office, the university, you're basically just telling them that you don't care about us. and that you don't believe us, and that is not right. Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Holly Thomas. I'm a PhD student here at the university. I'm a member of the Campus Labor Union, and I represent hundreds of graduate students in my capacity as a representative of the Graduate and Professional Student Council. I had a lot prepared, but I just wanted, before I start, to reiterate how ashamed you all should be at the lack of thought that went into this process. This is a deeply harmful activity, and your comments initially have really underlined how little thought went into this. So just want to look you in the eye and say that is so shameful. I'm here in solidarity with all student groups that serve to be displaced, and particularly the survivor of trauma and gender-based violence served by Survivor Advocacy. Crucially, I'm here to share a statement from one of my closest friends and colleagues who experienced a traumatic and destabilizing event while enrolled as a PhD student here at the university. Their story illustrates the vital importance of survivor advocacy spaces at our university. The administration's casual dismantling of these essential support resources is not just misguided, it is deeply destabilizing and harmful. We demand that you keep the student union a place for students, not administrators. Stop the dislocation, and at a bare minimum offer safe, accessible, equitable alternatives immediately, and transparency about the safety concerns that initially inspired the displacement. With those demands in mind, I'd like to read the statement prepared by my friend. To the University of Arizona Senior Administration, I write you not just as a doctoral graduate from the UA, but as a survivor who was saved by the Survivor Advocacy Program, a resource you are now callously planning to relocate, interrupting safe spaces for survivors to process their assault. This decision demonstrates a profound misunderstanding of the essential role these resources play in supporting vulnerable members of our academic community. My experience starkly illustrates the absolute necessity of a private, safe reporting space for survivors. When I reported my assault to UAPD, I was forced to recount my traumatic experience in their public lobby. Terrified of being overheard by colleagues or students, imagine having to describe your most painful, intimate violation in a crowded open space, where any passerby could hear your story. The indignity was crushing. At the Tucson Police Department, I was made to stand in a public line describing my assault through a ticket booth window, as casually as if I were buying a movie ticket, stripping away every ounce of my dignity at my most vulnerable moment. Survivor Advocacy Program recognized this fundamental violation. They created a dedicated space where survivors can report their experiences with privacy, compassion, and dignity. A sanctuary hidden in plain sight, accessible to those in need while remaining unremarkable to others. During my own recovery, this spaces became critical. It allowed me to privately call detectives, appear in court, and attend therapy without exposing my most intimate struggles to colleagues or compromising my professional identity. Let me be clear. Your proposed relocation isn't just administrative shuffling. It's an unconscionable betrayal of thousands of students. The reality is that sexual assault affects thousands within our campus community, and the impact cannot be understated. These numbers are stark. According to AAU studies, 26.4% of undergraduate women and 6.7% of men experience sexual assault. With over 60,000 students, that translates to approximately 16,000 potential survivors each year, and that's discounting our genderqueer and non-binary colleagues. These aren't statistics, they're real people, your students who deserve safety and support. Survivors of sexual assault and gender-based violence require consistent, predictable resources to heal because trauma fundamentally disrupts our sense of safety and trust, making any sudden removal of established support services particularly devastating. The elimination of dedicated advocacy spaces not only compromises student well-being, but also undermines academic persistence as survivors rely on these consistent resources to maintain their studies while navigating complex trauma recovery. This space enabled me to do what seemed impossible: complete my PhD, publish academic journals, win articles, win awards, mentor students, and successfully prosecute my abuser, all while managing this complex trauma. The dedicated advocacy professionals provided consistent, predictable support that was crucial to my healing and academic persistence. By disrupting the space, you're not just relocating an office, you're sending a brutal message that student safety is expendable, one we've heard over and over again.
As an alumni, I'm deeply ashamed of this decision. I actively discourage prospective students from attending the University of Arizona, making it clear that this institution prioritizes administrative convenience over the safety and well-being of survivors. You are not protecting students, you are actively harming them.
I'm going to be reading on behalf of someone from Survivor Advocacy. I am writing to express my deep and unwavering frustration regarding the university's sudden and one-sided decision to relocate Survivor Advocacy from the 4th floor of the student union. This decision was imposed with little warning and no prior consultation, leaving those of who rely on these services in a vulnerable and untenable position. Less than a week's notice was offered before construction was set to begin, and no relocation plan was offered. This is not a matter of convenience, this is a matter of my safety, and the safety of countless others being put at risk. As an Asian American woman who has experienced interpersonal violence from a fellow student, someone I am forced to see regularly, I have made it the 4th floor of the union my safe space. It is where I feel protected, supported, and understood by the staff at APASA, the WGRC, the LGBTQ Center, and Survivor Advocacy. I know the people on this floor, I am familiar with the space, and it offers me the privacy and security I need. When I discovered that I had back-to-back classes with my oppressor, I worked with Survivor Advocacy and APASA to secure accommodations. The fact that Survivor Advocacy was located nearby allowed me to address my situation quickly and effectively. To now be told that this vital service is being moved without any consideration for the consequences, it is not only reckless and inconsiderate, it is dangerous. Relocating the Survivor Advocacy in the matter undermines the very foundation of safety and support that is provided to students like myself. The rushed and thoughtless handling of this decision jeopardizes the confidentiality and trust that survivors need to seek help. The new temporary location in which our advocates have little choice but to accept offers no guarantee of safety, accessibility, nor anonymity. Critical elements for survivors who are already navigating some of the most traumatic events of their lives. The university has shown a complete disregard for the needs of the very students it is supposed to protect. The lack of consolation, the absence of a proper relocation plan, and the refusal to engage with the people directly impacted by this decision is a failure of our leadership. The relocation plan must be reconsidered, and a proper accommodations must be made to ensure the well-being of students who rely on Survivor Advocacy for support. The situation is urgent, and the university must do better. So with that includes all of our student speakers. We just want to say thank you for getting up here and speaking, because we know it's not easy to share your stories, so we really appreciate all of you doing that. We're now going to go ahead and move forward with the Q&A portion. So our Executive Vice President, Administrative Vice President, and myself will help moderate those, and Provost Marks and John Arnold will have a time to answer those questions. Thank you.
So we're going to start with our first question. And the first question is, can you specify in detail what the safety concerns at Old Main were and what Old Main will be utilized for if the changes are to occur?
I'll answer the second part of that first, and that is that at some point when enrollment management is moved out, then the likely new tenants of the first floor would be, among others, certainly the senior leadership in the provost's office. So that would be faculty affairs, probably student affairs, faculty affairs, student affairs, curricular affairs, the people that work directly with me to run the academic part of the program. I'm going to let John speak to the safety issues. So, John.
Thank you. you know, anything we do on campus is with a mind to safety. And thank you for all of the comments this evening about safety in the fourth floor, et cetera. And as Ron said, we absolutely going to reevaluate all of that. The Old Main is a high traffic area. We certainly want people to come into Old Main. It's open to the public. We hope you all enjoy the spaces in Old Main. And the high traffic nature of Old Main, the way we want it to be used as almost a museum on campus that people can come and see, is a little bit disruptive for the work of enrollment management and how we've envisioned that. So I don't want to suggest that this was really driven by some concern or physical safety concern for enrollment management team. It was driven more by the functionality that Provost Marks talked about early on in this session.
Our second question, could you elaborate on the planning process behind the relocation of enrollment management, including the displacement of FSP, CIELO, and Survivor Advocacy, as well as the repurposing of APASA space? How were these changes communicated to the affected parties, and do you believe the communication was sufficient and effective?
Let me start with that, and as always, probably should start with an apology. We made the decision in early fall that we wanted to relocate enrollment management, and so we started looking for new space. There is a space management team on campus. They came to me and said, here is a block of space that matches this square footage block of space and that would fit enrollment management. There were a couple of things we were looking for enrollment management. We wanted them to remain central on campus, close to parking garages. The concept of enrollment management being part of the student union was somewhat appealing, since these are new students that we're trying to attract to our campus. We also have a great space in the bookstore, the campus store, we renamed it, where we could launch and conclude tours, and there is office space near there where they can speak with parents and stuff right there in the campus store. So functionally, the fourth floor looked like it might be operational. Whenever you're doing a space move, there's a little bit of a chicken and an egg thing, because as soon as you start trying to investigate what's needed there, then the rumor mill starts rolling very, very quickly. And so it is difficult to put all that together. So they brought me that plan, and I asked, okay, who's in there right now? And they told me the three groups that were in there, including Survivor Advocates. And I said, okay, what is the plan for these three groups? And we need to be specifically sensitive to Survivor Advocates. If we're going to move this space, what is the plan going to be? And that's when we started a process to discuss what are the physical needs for those three entities. What I didn't understand was the integration on the fourth floor of those entities with the other groups there. Well, I did not understand that. Enrollment management's, their work cycle gets very, very heavy right after the holiday break as you come into January. As you can imagine, as we're trying to enroll students for the following fall. And so our goal was, if we were going to make the move, was to do it over the holiday break, and that's why there was some urgency around that. There were miscommunications along that way between my office, our facilities folks, who were just facilities folks. You know, we need an assessment of what would be needed in that space. They walk through and they become disruptive, you know, because they're just trying to look at what's needed. We're going to get some lighting fixed on the fourth floor regardless of what happens, so I hope that's a positive outcome of all of this. Was there sufficient communication? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Was there sufficient feedback? Absolutely not. Did we have a plan for survivor advocates in place before this got communicated? We did not, and we should have. CIELO, we had a good plan in place, and that move may move forward. There's a lot of interest from the CIELO, as I understand it, to move to the space we identified. We needed to do a better job with the other two groups. We did. So so there were a series of decisions and a series of pressures to move those decisions forward. And at some point along the way, I should have said no. I should have said no, and I did. And for that, I'm sorry. I've said no now. We've learned, we appreciate the feedback, and as we move forward with space moves, we will take the feedback we've gotten here and through this process to build that into any future process we have with any future space moves. So thank you for this very educational process. I am sorry for the pain and disruption that we created by not having a better process with this.
Okay, thank you. Why were the appropriate administration, staff, and student groups such as FSP, APASA, Survivor Advocacy, and other affected groups not consulted?
So again, I've got this map of all of the space on campus and who's in that space. And quite honestly, APASA isn't on the map and is using this space, so I didn't know. And typically when we've moved other people around over the last several months, and you think about the groups being moved, you don't think about their neighbors, and that was a mistake on my part. So that's why. I'm glad we had the opportunity to engage and consult after the fact, but I'm glad we've had that opportunity. And moving forward, we will make sure that not only are the people being directly affected, but also their neighbors are included in the collaboration and communication process.
I heard some tittering there in response to John's comment.
Laugh at me,
So I just wanted to add one thing about the APASA space. We realize that the APASA front desk is in that corridor outside of the APASA space. And I've been in, this is my 50th year as an academic, and I've squatted in many spaces as an academic. And the corridor that's outside of APASA, which you are using, I assume there are APASA folks here. So the space that's being used is rightfully yours, but it wasn't assigned to you. So that's what John meant by when he looked at the space APASA wasn't there. So for however it worked, that space has become, you've appropriated that space for your good work. So that's what he means, is that there is a corridor outside your offices that you are using that wasn't on the maps that had been assigned to APASA. That happens all the time, all over campus. There are all sorts of places, departments, academic departments, administrative departments that are occupying space that formerly was not allocated to them, but they've taken it over, and it's part of their operation.
The space transition was intended to, wrong question. There has been no support for the next steps of moving and helping find a space. Survivor Advocacy has not been provided with an adequate space, and FSP has not been given a space. Shouldn't the burden of finding a permanent and adequate space fall on the administration?
Yes. Agreed.
100%.
Quick question, and just to clarify to everyone, hi, my name is Kenny Portante. I serve as the director for APASA, and I wanted to clarify. because at the end of the day, there's a lot of confusion as far as where is APASA supposed to be. For many of the students here, we moved in the current space in 2022, summer 2022. Again, as referred to by John as part of the student activism that took place in fall 2021. I want to clarify that, and this is in conversation with Jose, when we moved in, Jose Teran, when we moved in, who's part of the person in charge of the campus space usage. When we moved into that space, the back wall of where all this, the hallway between FSP and APASA, that's part of Suite 409. The front desk itself, yes, it could be construed as a shared space, but at the end of the day, when we were having conversations with the Dean of Students and FSP, no one wanted to take that front desk. And for APASA, it's kind of weird not to have a front desk itself when a lot of the students walk in and out for the various resources that we have. And so I want to clarify, and maybe it's a conversation with the campus use to basically update the map. At the end of the day, management knows that the keys belong to specifically Suite 409, and folks that are in 411, they have a specific way of being able to get in. So I just wanted to make sure that that's clarified, because at the end of the day, yes, it can be very confusing. There are parts in that open space that does not belong to the center, I admit that, but also the front desk is part of 409 A-1, and 409 letter L is the one that I think people forget. Many of the students do hang out there at the raised table as well. So just putting it out there as an offer of clarification.
Kenny, congratulations on having such a great fan club and the impact you must have on the group. Well done, thank you.
We have a couple more questions left. We're going to give it to some of our students from to ask them.
Hi, my name is Brian, and I just wanted to say that I'm under APASA and that this move affects us. And I just wanted to remind you, as we touched on in our opening remarks, that we've been moved like a total of 4 times without any student or any administration involvement, or student involvement, I mean. And I just want to ask, how do you plan to incorporate student input into these future decisions and prevent further displacement of several communities and these resources?
Well, I think this is the beginning of that process, Kenny. And when I said that we're going to just function, Kenny, sorry, Brian. Sorry. No.
Yeah, it's Brian.
Sorry. So, this is the beginning of that process, and as I said, that when we're doing analysis of space needs, we would talk to the groups, the administrative groups, namely the leadership, people like Kenny and the Vice President for Student Affairs and so on, and incorporate collaboration with whatever groups are potentially affected by any move. So I commit to that. We would not do what we did before. We'll include voices of students, staff, and faculty as appropriate, depending on the organization that might be affected by a move. And you can hold me to that.
I will.
Hello, I'm here representing APASA today, as well as the Filipino American Student Association. FASA, in partnership with APASA, has a long history of advocating for our students to the administration, including recent efforts where many of our members fought for the APASA space. Could you clarify if there is a formal process or mechanism in place to ensure that the APASA space remains permanently designated to this organization? Additionally, how can we solidify this designation in writing to provide long-term security for APASA's use of the space?
That's a good question. I can't stand up on this platform and make a commitment to that right now. Particularly the word permanent. There's hardly anything permanent in the university. People move in and out of lots of spaces. I did not know the story until I heard that story about all the different moves. I was introduced this afternoon to a memo. Dr. Hatcher sent me a memo this afternoon that was dated 2021 that had to do with the move to the space right now. That's just 3 years, so that's a lot of disruption. And we can't commit to a permanent space forever to anybody, because that just doesn't work that way. But I think a process that does show the long-term commitment of the administration to student groups is a worthwhile thing to think about. And I know that Dr. Kraus is working with a group right now, sort of revitalizing, revisioning what student affairs at the university might look like. And I'm looking at it right now, and I'm hoping that in that process, that this particular issue could be raised. So I think it's an important one, but just this isn't the place to make a commitment.
Okay, I'm gonna ask the last two questions and then we're gonna go into closing remarks. These are questions from the crowd. How many times during your time in this administration position have you spoken or interacted with students, particularly marginalized students?
I don't know if I can count the number, but often. I've been in this administrative job for 15 months, plus or minus a couple weeks in the summer, but often. I meet regularly, by the way, with the leadership of the Graduate Professional Student Association and ASUA. I work very closely with them, and we talk about issues that they raise, and I try to advocate as much as I can with my colleagues in senior administration on behalf of the students.
And then the last question, why move into some of the only spaces meant to cater to students, specifically minority groups and students in need, instead of somewhere else on campus?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part.
Yeah, I got it. And this gets back to the prior story. And again, I'm embarrassed. But you look at a map, you look at square footage on a map, and you don't, because I didn't stop to consider the people in those spaces. We were looking at matching up square footage. And could we find a solution set for the people that were there? Can you speak up, please? Yes, I can. We didn't stop to consider the people who were there, and when you're dealing with space management, enrollment management is a large group, these are smaller groups, and so it's easier to find a solution for a smaller group than a large group. And that was really the logic that we were going through, and that logic was poor and misplaced and misguided, and has been corrected by your efforts. And so as we move forward, we'll do a much better job. And like Ron, I commit to that, and I like the idea of memorializing in policy. You know, when we make these types of moves that impact student spaces, to ensure we have the right level of consultation with students. But that's why these spaces were selected, because we were, and I was a little bit thoughtless about it. And so I appreciate being called out for that and corrected, and I've learned, and we're gonna do a different process moving forward, so thank you.
Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and move to closing remarks. Our Administrative Vice President is gonna go ahead and start off, Alicia Hall. In her role, she oversees programs and services, so that is something that here today we're seeing that has a big impact to what is happening.
Hello,
My name is Alicia Hall, and I am the Administrative Vice President of the Associate Students of the University of Arizona. Outside of my role as AVP, I am also a part of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, a sorority part of the United Sorority Fraternity Council. I believe that space dedicated for students should remain space dedicated to students. It's called the Student Union for a reason. Whether it's intentional or not, the movement of survivor advocacy into the union has showed the university's community that survivors are not a priority of administration. Taking APASA, CIELO, Vet Center space, and FSP shows that marginalized students, traumatized and veteran students, and students of color are not a priority of the administration. When I visit APASA space, it's packed every time. I visited APASA's open house at the beginning of the semester, and it was so packed I had nowhere to sit. Like, this is a beautiful community, truly. There is never a dull moment in APASA. That space is already fully utilized to a full capacity. My sorority, which provides service to all mankind and creates a safe space for Black women, is being displaced. But not only is it my sorority, every sorority fraternity under the United Sorority Fraternity Council who does not have a house on Greek Row is being affected by this displacement. There is nowhere for us to store our things, nowhere for us to have our intake processes or our events. So if this move were to happen, there would be nothing that my sorority or any other sorority or fraternity under the council could do about it. We would have to go out of our way to find spaces that would provide space for the people we serve. We conduct educational events and membership processes in that space. You heard from Perla earlier, who told you how USFC fully utilizes that space. The fact that our spaces are being taken from us is disheartening. It shows how our administration sees us. This isn't new. The administration has a trend of making students feel as they're not a priority, as if we don't spend 9 months a year here, and many students will call this institution their home forever long they attend the University of Arizona, including international students and any other non-traditional student. It's a burden of the administration to make adequate and equitable space for our students. As a student, I support the grievances of the affected groups. APASA is more than your 5.68% of students you get to report each year. CIELO is more than a tool to attract international students. Survivor advocacy is more than just another program. And the Vet Center is more than a resource to add to your website. It serves veterans who are often traumatized and have served this country to a great capacity. FSP is more than donors in Greek Row, and these students are more than enrollment numbers, diversity goals, and bodies to fill this campus. Be more considerate of how you treat us, how much we value our space, and what our space means to us. This move has shown that administration does not consider any of the people in this room when making decisions that concern the people in this room. For the students in this room, thank you for allowing me to serve as your AVP and for being here. Thank you for your allyship, your care, and your consideration for the people who are directly and indirectly impacted by this. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Tafoya, and it is nice to meet you guys after being in this position after a semester. Not only am I the current ASUA Executive Vice President, but I am a member of Lambda Theta Alpha Latin Sorority Incorporated. I stand here with others to advocate for the importance of ensuring that every student organization and community on this campus feels supported and valued. Our university is built on the foundation of diversity, inclusion, and shared experiences. In spaces like those that house Survivor Advocacy, CIELO, Fraternity and Sorority Programs, and APASA are integral to fostering this foundation. These organizations provide more than just physical spaces. They create environments where students find support, safety, and empowerment. I am someone who has personally benefited from the sense of belonging and leadership opportunities provided by Greek life. My sorority has not only given me a sense of community, but a home. A sisterhood that I can rely on for life. I know firsthand how vital these dedicated spaces are for our communities, especially multicultural Greek life, which was created to provide spaces and opportunities for people of color that were only given to white people. Through my time here at the U of A, I have continued to see time and time again students being impacted at the hands of administration, from student organizations to student workers to cultural resource centers and so much more. These moves cannot come at the expense of displacing students who depend on these vital resources. Displacing these organizations would prevent them from continuing their important work, leaving students without the services they rely on to thrive. ASUA and I are committed to working alongside students and advocating to find solutions that prioritize the needs of all students. We want to ensure that this university continues to be a place where every student feels they're at home, they have a voice, and a community, and not feel like their spaces can be taken from them at any moment. Thank you.
With that, we're gonna give you both a minute to close out some remarks and any remaining things that you guys would like to add.
Well, thank you for the public education of Ron Marks. I greatly appreciate it. And we will heed the advice that you gave us. And we'll move forward with you as collaborators as we find the right kind of space for the various functions of the university. The stories that we heard this afternoon about the collaboration among the various groups on the 4th floor is a really good story. And while this is a bit of a perp walk for John and me, I understand that, and we will listen to you and make sure that we support our cultural centers and the kind of services that provide for all of our students. So thank you very much for what you've said today. Very clearly and forcefully argued, and I appreciate it.
Polite applause, that was nice. I just want to echo Ron and what we said before. Thank you. And thank you for approaching this with decorum and civility and an appropriate structure. There's lots of different ways to express your opinions. Some are very productive, some not so productive. And this was an incredibly productive forum, and I thought each of the questions and the speakers were appropriate, logical, well-prepared, thoughtful, and civil, which we deeply appreciate and makes it easier for us to collaborate with you moving forward. So thank you very much, and looking forward to working with all of you and anyone else on campus as we work to resolve these issues. So thank you.
So with that, we just want to say thank you to everybody that came out today. Like we said, seeing you all come together these last days has really shown us that your voice matters. So just know that we are listening and that we really hope to keep advocating for you. And thank you to all you students that trusted us and came to us, and that we were able to create this today, and that you all felt that you guys can have this conversation. So thank you, and we are very